Georgia High School track and field, the start for many Olympians, including Forrest Speck Towns, Antonio McKay, Alice Coachman Davis, Mel Pender, Wyoming Tyus, Gwen Torrance, Angelo Taylor, Terrence Trammell, and Dwight Phillips, just to name a few. Tune in to Around the Oval's coverage of the 2015 Georgia High School track and field season.
And with a few trials and small meets around the state, we thought we'd use this quiet time to talk about the 2014 season and make a few predictions on the 2015 season.
Okay, so let's meet today's analysts first. We've got Nick Morgan, he's the head cross-country coach for the Mount Pisgah Christian School. We've got Tony Dunning, who's the head coach for First Light Track Club. And we've got Mr. Hawthorne Wesley, who's our color analyst with 60-plus years in the Georgia track and field community. And we're your hosts, Ian Dubé and Pamela Hudson with Around the Oval TV.
Last year you had your usual suspects. You had Westlake, you had McEachern, you had Miller Grove, Landmark Christian, Westminster. There are a few surprises like Lamar County boys beating Westminster. You had Lovett dominating girls 2A and Shiloh boys running away with 6A. And of course, there were close races like Marist and Carrollton. Carrollton is typically your usual suspect at the state championship on the boys' side. And of course, you had Woodward Academy and St. Pius.
And you also had some, what we would call disappointments. You had Ryan Clark, who was your state champion, the 400 meters the prior year, came back last year, didn't quite make it. In fact, you had a Zaquavian Smith who beat him at the line. That was a bit of a disappointment, depending on what side of the fence you're sitting on. And then there was an expectation that Jeremy Hampton would finally break that record, the half mile, 151.75 that Marcelo Dunning has held for maybe close to 10, 15 years. Came close, but not quite close enough. But we wanted to hear a bit from our analysts in terms of what they thought about the 2014 season.
St. Pius, I tell you, just seems to reload. I am impressed. 2013 they won, 2014 they won with the boys. And so jumping over to the private school in Class A, 2013 Athens Christian, just like St. Pius. I believe they can do it again. 2014 they did it, in 2015 it'll be interesting to see. For 2014 in the public school would be the girls. Gordon Lee for the first time in Coach Dan Roberts' 27-year history won a state title.
Wow.
Beating Marion County, bested Marion County by, about 9 points.
That's right.
And what's interesting there is Gordon Lee has moved up to 2A. So that adds more competition for that division with the girls. So be interesting to see what Lovett does. Now the field's going to be spread a little more in terms of competition. Elka, that was impressive. I was talking earlier about Miss Cameron at Elka. She's a true freshman. And some of the things she did in some of the sprints. So looking for her to repeat. She was the high point, and I could see her doing that again in sectionals. And I was talking, I said, if she makes it to the college level, she could be a heptathlete the way she's built. If somebody will teach her some pole vaulting skills, some basic skills, so that'd be impressive to see that occur.
Tony, would you weigh in? Can you talk a bit?
First off, on the Ryan Clark incident you talked about, what just a tremendous athlete. He's already ran the #1 time in the country for 55-meter dash this year indoors. Last year, in order to help his team, he's a team guy, he decided to long jump and kind of hurt himself a little bit, injured himself a little bit because he wasn't used to long jumping. And that, I think, attributed to him being upset at the line in the state final last year. But they're going to be back again. Banneker's going to be back again to try to win that title. Ryan Clark is going to be at the head of the class in that situation.
What else? 6A, 5A. Any thoughts on the girls 6A?
It was a great battle between Westlake and McEachern going back and forth. Won't be quite that way this year, but it was a great battle last year with Westlake scoring in most of the events and McEachern getting big points from Dunmore in their relays, Kristen Hall contributing. But I think it'll be their lack of depth this year, especially in the field events, that's going to carry Westlake.
All right.
In the boys 6A, Jeremy McDuffie really came to play in the hurdles and the jumps, as he won both hurdles and the jumps. He's a great athlete, but he's injured this year, so he won't be competing this year.
Hawthorne, you had an interesting point of view. We talked last year, you talked about Westlake perhaps putting a lot of expectations on the freshman Rashad Pollard.
I think that Westlake has got two excellent coaches out there, and they may put expectations on them, but I don't think they're the type that'll really push them to the distraction. I think they handle the people very, very well. I would say I might pick Westlake to be the 6A champion, but you've got to remember that McEachern still has, what is it, Mackenzie Dunmore, is that her name?
Yes.
They still got her, and I believe she ran a 54 last year. I still would, if I had to say a favorite, I would say Westlake. McEachern always has good relays, like Westlake does. McEachern is an extra-large school, and if you've got that many students and one or two sprinters, you can find two others to go with them. Marietta might score heavily in the distance, women. Just one thing I'd like to say, we're talking about 6A women. Don't forget, Marietta has the state champion, defending state champion in Mary Gina Senzo, who ran a 5:02 mile and a 2:13.800. She's back, and Marietta is like McEachern. They always find enough sprinters to score and have good relay teams.
Yeah, Miller Grove and Pope, they duked it out all the way to the last event. Miller Grove graduated, as Hawthorne said earlier, very talented Tiffany Flynn, who Northside Warner Robbins would be my favorite though, as Cassandra Hall. She'll win a couple of events and she'll anchor some relays, and she'll lead her team to victory in that classification.
What about the boys?
The boys last year, Mount Zion just put together just a heck of a run. I don't think they're going to be able to come back and do that again this year. Stevenson, once again, they always bring a ton of athletes with them. New Manchester, in girls and boys, is a relatively new school, 5 or 6 years old. They've got some good club kids that go to school out there, so they're going to be in the mix as well.
I don't think we talked enough about the Marist men and women. They've won both championships the last 2 years. This past year, the women scored 96 points, which was the highest of the day at Albany, and I believe it was the highest at Jefferson. They scored 96 points, and the way they did it, they got 38 points in the field, 52 in the distance, and 6 in the relay. Now, of those 52 points in the distance, as near as I can figure, every single one of them is coming back, led by Morgan Elsey, who's the state cross-country champion. They also have, there's two Brinsons there that throw the discus. Kenneth, and the girl's name is Cameron. She scored, I believe, 10 points between the two in the shot and the discus, and she'll be back. I mean, with that and nothing else, you've got, say, 62 points that was there last year. So they look mighty good. The Marist men beat Carrollton by 1 point. They scored 67 points in 7 events. They spread it out. They got a surprise win from David Gilstrap in the hurdles in 14:04. He's gone. They got points 400. That person's gone. They got Frank Pittman back. They scored heavily in distance. But the people that won, they got 1-2, 1-2 in the 8 and the 16 and 32. I mean, those people are gone. But Frank Pittman had an excellent cross-country season, and right now he's having an excellent indoor season. He'll score some points. They got back Kenneth Brinson, who won the state last year in the discus in 179.4, but he's thrown over 180 on a number of occasions, and he can also score for him in the shot. Now, those are some people to think about. I'd say Marist, men and women, I would have to hang the favorites role on them.
Well, gang, I want to touch on a few things that Ian and I have talked about 2014. The first is Quintavious Poole. Quintavious Poole, he was half-miler. When we talked to Quintavious, he'd mentioned that he was a half-miler before picking.
Track and Field News has him listed way down in the 46s, so I assumed he had an excellent summer. He's ranked number 3 in the nation by Track and Field News.
Lauren Jackson, she goes by Molly Jackson out of Dunwoody. Well, she was with Dunwoody when I last knew of her. We'd invited her to the pro meet based on her running a 2:11 in 2012 and a 2:13 the following year. Haven't seen much from her this year, and I didn't know if anyone was familiar with her. She's a half miler.
I think something happened in terms of her training. She lost her coach, Antonio McKay, who was a great Olympic athlete, was her coach, and she did very well, and he moved on to another school. And that might have had something to do with her falling off just a bit. She's a real good athlete. She's a little short in stature, but she's a very fast athlete. I think she's been 55 low in the open 400. So, if she can get back to her training and get back on that regime she on, make sure she matures as much as she can to put the work in, then I think she can get back.
Nick, are you familiar with Catherine Foreman out of Landmark Christian?
Landmark.
When I saw her, it was a couple of years ago, might have been 3 even, out at the middle school championships. She led the pack in distance, and then over the next 2 years, not so much.
They ran her pretty heavily in middle school. So she ran fairly often in middle school. But with women, you usually see that development occur in 9th and 10th, somewhere around that 9th, 10th grade year. And that's one of the things that happened with her. It's just interesting. I mean, as the competition for her increased, you're right, I think I saw, her times went down, and I don't know what the reason would be other than maybe those two factors, maybe some overuse, too many miles or something possibly, and then there's development of being a female. Because I remember in middle school, and you have several of those little girls that's just a ball of energy, and all they are is legs, and from the hips down, it's just movement. And then they develop, and you see the time start to slowly drop, and I think that's one of the factors. That's been one of the surprises with a girl from Fellowship Christian, Emma Grace. She goes out and runs a low 21, I believe, in her first try, and they said, okay, we may have something here. And now she's running the 17. She's quite the athlete. And one thing that everybody's been watching, she's a junior, is what's her growth and development. She's maintained that just ball of energy. She'll run, the distance. She'll run a 2 mile, or she'll run a 3,200. She'll run a 5K, 3.1, and cross the finish line.
Well, let's not forget Helen Williams, who was injured the whole season.
Right.
But as a freshman, she was as good as anyone in the state. She was out all last cross-country season. She did win the mile and the 2 mile at Albany in an excellent time. I believe she ran a 5:02 at Albany as a freshman. But she did not run at all in cross-country. Now,
Well, 2014 is in the books. So now let's talk about 2015. Many of the team we've discussed have will rely on their returning class to get them to the podium. But let's take a minute to identify some of the incoming talent. And this is where we're going to lean on you, Tony, because you're a real connoisseur of the incoming talent. And, whether they be high school transfers, incoming freshmen, track club, kids who have track club resumes, who should we be watching this year, Tony?
In terms of newcomers, freshmen?
Yeah.
We've got several. We've got a couple of really talented freshmen coming in. Parkview has a freshman by the name of Justin Long. Justin Long is a track club guy. He's been around running for a lot of years at a high level. He's a national champion several times over. But actually, as an 8th grader last year, and you ready for this one, ran 48.3 last year. So he comes in with a 48.3 and a 21.8. Westlake, as the rich get richer, has a freshman by the name of Kennedy Simon on the female side, who also is a former national champion, national record holder, ran a 54 as a 7th grader. Didn't compete last year, just wanted to kind of rest her leg and save herself, no injuries, just kind of relaxing and just getting prepared for high school. So I expect some great things from her, because she's a heavy competitor. She loves to compete, loves to get out there with the big girls and try to show what she has.
The twins, the Brooks, with Athens Christian, Justin and Josiah, the brothers. Sorry, I shouldn't say twins, brothers. I see them to come back. When you look at the boys' 400 meters, 49.11 and a 50.3.
There'll be some other freshmen as well we didn't talk about. Down in Baldwin County, a young lady named Deloria Boone, who's a 19-foot long jumper, 11.8 sprinter. I look for her to do some big things. Rainey Anderson, a young man, he's a hurdler, and he's going to have to have that that huge transition from the 33-inch hurdles to the 39-inch hurdle, which is challenging in itself. But he's the type of athlete with the body stature that he can get it done pretty quickly.
He's also with Westlake.
He's also at Westlake, as the rich get richer. He was a talented middle school kid, and just as my colleague here said, even with the males as well, puberty will get in there and it'll cause some changes and cause some things. And sometimes if you grow too fast, it's hard to get that turnover. It's hard to get your body to cooperate with your mind. So there could be some issues there. I also have Elijah Florence at McEachern, 56 low, 400-meter runner. She'll be in the mix there as well as on those relays. Hunter Robinson in the sprints at Harrison.
At Perimeter School, there's a young man, Caden Cole, who was running 16:15 in the hurdles.
What about Candace Hill was new to us last year. I mean, Tony, she might have been on your radar, and she's not a freshman, clearly. But she's put up some incredible times, considering that she was a freshman last year.
Yeah.
right?
Freshman last year, yeah.
She holds the state all-class record in the 100 and the state 6A record in the 200. I may have that reversed, but she holds one state all-class record and one state 6A record. And as you say, she's just a freshman.
This is the fun part. We've looked back, we've covered who's new, who's injured, right? So all things considered now, who will win their division?
Then public school for the boys, 2013 was Commerce, 2014 Hancock Central. I think Hancock Central, with their talent being spread out, I think that's a possibility for them. The one that impresses me, I'd love to see it happen again. I think with the Brooks brothers going out, I think they'd go out on top. I'd love to see Athens Christian be a favorite to repeat. And that's actually a three-peat, I guess. Maybe 2013, 2014 for the boys' private school classification A. It's going to be interesting in the double A with the boys. The favorite there, that's a toss-up. Maybe Westminster comes back. Maybe Wesleyan, as well as Greater Atlanta Christian.
What about you? What about Lovett? Don't you think the Lovett women are in very good shape?
Yes, yeah, and that's what, for 2A, 2015, I can see Lovett women repeating. They won last year in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
But Lovett, you start off with a girl like Tripodi, you're probably basically starting off with 20 points on the board.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying with Eagles Landing as well. What's interesting is the guys in that 2A. Because when you think about Greater Atlanta Christian, the coaching staff they have, Chad McDaniel over at Wesleyan, a lot of strategy goes into it. You see them looking at each other and who's competing and then moving around the athletes to try to make the best competition possible, if that makes sense. A lot of strategy goes on in 2A with Westminster, Wesleyan. So that'd be my predictions, yeah, for the girls, 2015, in the 2A would be Lovett.
So what do you think in Hawthorne for 3A? You're looking at Woodward for girls or St. Pius? There was only a 5-point difference between the two last year.
Didn't Woodward win the state last year?
That's right, but
All right, I'm going to go with the winner.
on the boys' side, what are we thinking? We had St. Pius who won last year convincingly. It's probably a 40-point difference between them and second place Cedar Grove.
They won the year before that. They're going to win this year.
Okay, there you go. Well, let's talk about the big classifications. And Tony, I'm going to pick on you because you're most familiar with this crew at 6A. Now, I heard you mention before when we talked about Westlake and McEachern, you put your money on Westlake girls. That would be a three-peat for them.
Wow.
Wow, that's right.
So 3, 4, 5. They made 6 P or whatever you call it.
You think so?
They've got a lot of depth at Westlake.
Do they?
They've got athletes in almost every event. They've got the freshmen coming in. Simon's going to step in somewhere. She's going to be adding a lot of punch to what they already have. They've got Phillips jumping. They've got Stinson. McEachern is going to be very, very tough. I think because they don't have any jumpers of note or anything like that, they're going to be kind of lost in the sauce. So I look for Westlake to win it quite handily this time.
If you look at the boys,
I want you to be Robert Wilson just for a minute, or Jason Cage.
Okay.
How you coach them to that championship since you...
In the field, you've got Phillips at the long jump. You've got Howard and Stinson triple jumping. They've just got a tremendous crew, and all those girls are tops in the state. So they're going to get big points out of those events. They're going to be really, really tough to beat. Keatron has done more. They got a couple of other athletes. They've got Kristen Hall running the hurdles. They've got a couple of freshmen coming in that'll help them in the relays. But I think they're going to come a little bit too short.
What are your thoughts on the boys?
In the boys 6A classification, so in the tough, close 6A race last year, and that's always a toss-up. You know, it's hard to go in 6A boys and say there's going to be a definitive winner. So many good athletes out there. Rockdale County has Crawford, who could win the 1 and the 2. You'll get a lot of competition, as usual in 6A, from a couple of youngsters in Green and Pollard. North Gwinnett will have Jeremy Hampton, who could possibly double in the 4 and the 8. Malik Dawkins is out there for Rockdale as well, so Rockdale could be in the mix. It's going to be tough going.
So who's your pick?
That's a toss-up right now. I'm gonna let
But I'm gonna mention one school that's up and coming, and nobody heard of them 3 or 4 years ago, because they're just 3 or 4 years old. They really hit this big scene last year in the women's state track meet, Archer. The coaches there are John McCartney, who's been around for years and coaches the distance runners, and they got Billy Williams. He ran at Stone Mountain, and now he's the other head coach over there. They seem to know what they're doing, and last year in the women's meet, they piled up a lot of points that nobody thought they were going to get.
What's your pick for 6A boys?
My pick for 6A boys is going to be Westlake.
They haven't won in 9 years.
I know.
Then I'll pick them, they do.
All right, there you go.
Well, you know, they'll have Pilot running the sprints. They'll have Warrior running the 400. They'll obviously do very well in the relays. They've got Flagler running the hurdles. So they're going to be able to rack up some points. And I think Coach some kind of way finds somebody to high jump every year for him. So they're going to definitely be in the mix.
Hawthorne, do you have a point of view on 5A? Can you give us some picks in 5A?
Women, let's see. I'm going to say Miller Grove lost about, you say Miller Grove made 60 points, 30 of those were scored by one woman who's graduated, plus what she did on the relays. And I'll take Northside Warner Robbins.
There you go.
Is that your
Northside Warner Robbins is my pick.
What's
He
her
just
name?
said
Candace Hall?
Cassandra.
Cassandra Hall.
He just said it just takes one athlete sometimes to create
Yeah.
a perfect storm. And I think it'll be Cassandra.
She's due for a breakout season. She's been running behind people the whole time. Now she's due for breakout season.
It won't be easy. MLK will be in the mix. I think Woodland, Stockbridge will be in the mix as well. But I'm going to go with Northside Warner Robbins.
Where are we on the boys? 5A, Mount Zion won it, followed by Stevenson and Union Grove.
Now, is Don Sellers still the coach?
John Sellers is still.
All right, Don Sellers is still the coach. I'll go with Stevenson.
He's going with the coaches. I'm going to go against the grain a little bit because remember we did talk about Banneker moving up to 5A and having Ryan Clark. And when you have an athlete like that, sometimes your coaching really, really picks up. I've noticed that even in the indoor season that the Banneker coaches are doing a lot more. They're participating a lot more in trying to get that perfect storm going and get those athletes together. So Banneker will definitely be in the mix in terms of 5A. Luella doesn't have a lot of great athletes from last year in 6A. They did have the guy who had the fastest hurdle time. Now that McDuffie's hurt, the fastest hurdle time. He's at Luella. So Luella dropping down from 6A to 5A will definitely figure into the points. But I'm going to go with Banneker on this one.
All right, we have been.
Today's show was brought to you by Opal Street Productions. If it's track and field, we innovate, market, host, operate, and broadcast it from the stadium to the streets.